How is everyone doing today? So, today's going to be a little bit of a special day here. We're going to be reacting to the information that we're going to be getting today from PlayStation. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Add a new source instead. Okay. Browse. So, I'm pretty excited about this. I don't really know exactly what to expect from this, but I think that we should get some pretty spicy details today in regards to PlayStation 5. Let me just go ahead and let the internet know that I am live right now. And then we'll go ahead and see if we can pull up this stream. Let me see here. Don't really know exactly what to expect from this, but okay. Bing bong. All right. Okay, let me just go ahead and get over to this. Hey Garth, how's it going, my friend? How you doing today? How you doing today? I am doing pretty good. Yeah, I'm just excited to see what we're gonna find out here about the PlayStation 5. Honestly, like I'm just super hyped about that. Um, what do you guys think? Are you guys excited to see what we're gonna see about PlayStation 5? Do you have do you think it's gonna be pretty lit? I think it probably is gonna be a pretty powerful machine. So we'll see here. All right. All right, I think we're good with that. So, should be coming up any moment here. I am live right now reacting to PlayStation 5 reveal. Come hang out. Boom. All right. I think we're all set, guys. I think we're all set. Just joined to watch the live stream too. I hope it's good. Yeah, me too. So it's 12 o'clock now, so we should have it available right now. So let me go ahead and see if I can find it here. I think that they said it was going to be live on their blog, right? Let me see. Let me see here. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, PS5. Watch tomorrow at PlayStation Blog, okay? So where is this live stream at here? If somebody has it, you can go ahead and just, if you guys could like send me a link or something. Let me go here, see if I can find it. Oh, here we go. Gaming with the Geeks. Maybe we'll just pull up IGN.
Were you planning?
PS5 reveal and chill. IGN is streaming it. Is there like a PlayStation stream for this? Maybe we'll just do IGN. We'll probably just do IGN. Let's just do IGN.
Mom, a lightning bolt hit the insured's riding mower, but his farmer's home insurance policy covered the damage.
Can you guys hear it?
They really do know a thing or two because they've seen a thing or two.
I was the same way at his age.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Get a quote today.
To you and the one and only Mark Cerny. Without further ado, over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Jim.
Let me know if it's too quiet or anything.
Lots of chances later on this year to look at
Let me know.
PlayStation 5 games. Today, I want to talk a bit about our goals for the PlayStation 5 hardware and how they influenced the development of the console. I think you all know I'm a big believer in console generations. Once every 5 or 6 or 7 years, a console arrives with substantially new capabilities. There's a lot of learning by the game developers, hopefully not too overwhelming, and soon there's games that could never have been created before. Now, it used to be that as console designer, you'd somehow intuit what would be the best set of capabilities for the new console, and then build it in complete secrecy. For the PlayStation consoles, that period lasted through PlayStation 3, a powerful and groundbreaking console, but also one that caused quite a lot of heartache, as it was initially difficult to develop games for. So, starting with PlayStation 4, we've taken a different approach, roughly centered around 3 principles. The first of these, listening to developers, which is to say that a lot of what we put into a console derives directly from the needs and aspirations of the game creators. We definitely do have some ideas of our own, but at the core of our philosophy for designing consoles is that game players are here for the fantastic games, which is to say that game creators matter. Anything we can do to make life easier for the game creators or help them realize their dreams, we will do. So, about once every 2 years, I take a tour of the industry. I go to the various developers and publishers, sit down, and discuss how they're doing with the current consoles and what they'd like to see in future consoles. This requires weeks on the road, as reaching the bulk of the game creators involves talking to well over 100 people at something like 24 publishers and developers. And it is incredibly valuable. By the way, the feature most requested by the developers, that was an SSD, which we were very happy to put in the hardware, but a lot of problem solving was required. I'll be doing a deep dive on the SSD and surrounding systems later on in this talk. It's also key to make a generational leap while keeping consoles sufficiently familiar to game developers. I think about this in terms of balancing evolution and revolution. Now, with PlayStation 1, 2, and 3, the target was a revolution each time with a brand new feature set. That was great in many ways, but time for the developers to get up and running got longer with each console. In the past, I've called this time to triangle. Here's what I had for those 3 consoles. To be clear, I'm not talking about time to make a game. Developers will be ambitious, and it may take them 6 years or so to realize their vision.
Do you guys hear
What I'm
that,
talking
like,
about is that
skip
dead
thing?
time for graphic and other aspects of game development are up and running, and trying to minimize that. On the other hand, if we're trying to reduce that dead time to 0, that means the hardware architecture can't change at all. We're handcuffed. We need to judge for each feature what value it adds and whether it's worth the increase in developer time needed to support it.
So with PlayStation 4,
we were able to strike a pretty good balance.
Okay, so it's not me. It's actually the actual stream.
Require
Okay.
learning
Just wanted to make sure that that little like
With
skip
PS5,
thing wasn't me,
the GPU
but it's
was
not. It's
definitely
it's
very
the actual
helpful
stream
distinction
apparently.
between adding new features and keeping a familiar programming model. Ultimately, I think we ended up with something under a month of getting up to speed. That feels like we're striking about the right balance. I'll go into a bit more detail later today about our philosophy.
Come on, just get to some fun stuff.
specific
I just want to know
that
like
resulted.
cool stuff. I don't care about any of
It's
this.
also very important for us, as the hardware team, to find new dreams, by which I mean something other than CPU performance, GPU performance, and the amount of RAM. The increase in graphics performance over the past 2 decades has been astonishing, but there are other areas in which we can innovate and provide significant value to the game creators and through
Okay.
them, the players. That's why the SSD was very much on our list of directions to explore, regardless of what came out of the conversations with game developers and publishers. The biggest feature in this category is the custom engine for audio. That's today's final topic. The push for vastly improved audio, and in particular 3D audio, isn't something that came out of developer meetings. It's much more the case that we had a dream of what might be possible 5 years from now, and worked out a number of steps we would take to set us on that path. So here again are the 3 principles. The first being enabling the desires of developers to drive the hardware design.
Okay.
To me, the SSD really is the key to the next generation. It's a game changer. And it was the #1 ask from developers for PlayStation 5. As in, we know it's probably impossible, but can you put an SSD in? That was a discussion we were also having internally. It was clear that the presence of a hard drive in every PlayStation 4 was having a positive impact. A lot of things that would simply have been impossible at Blu-ray disc speed were now possible. At the same time, though, in 2015 and 2016, when we were having these conversations, developers were already banging up against the limits of the hard drive, and a lot of developer time was being spent designing around slow load speeds. I want to focus in on just one number here, which is how long it takes to load a gigabyte of data from a hard drive. The difficulty being that hard drives are neither particularly fast nor flexible. If all your data is in one block, which is frankly not very likely, you can load 50 to 100 megabytes a second, depending on where the data is located on the hard drive. Let's assume it's on the outer edge, which means loading a gigabyte takes 10 seconds. If you compress your game packages, you can fit more data on the Blu-ray disc and also effectively boost your hard drive read speed by the compression ratio. We support zlib decompression on PlayStation 4 that gets you something like 50% more data on the disc and 50% higher effective read speed. Unfortunately, though, it's highly likely that your data is scattered around in various files on the hard drive, as well as sourced from multiple locations within those files. So lots of seeks are needed at 2 to 50-ish milliseconds each. My rule of thumb is that the hard drive is spending 2/3 of its time seeking and only 1/3 of its time actually loading data. Putting all of that together, a gigabyte is very roughly 20 seconds to load from a hard drive. Now, a gigabyte is not much data. Games are using 5 or 6 gigabytes of RAM on PlayStation 4, so boot times and load times get pretty grim. Or to put that differently, as a player, you wait for the game to boot, wait for the game to load, wait for the level to reload every time you die, and you wait for...
Hey, deplorable German. How you doing, my friend?
Travel. And all of that leads to...
Thanks for watching all the way from
What if
Germany.
we
That's
have
pretty
not
awesome.
just an SSD,
Thanks
but
for
a
being here, man.
blindingly fast SSD? If we could load 5 gigabytes a second from it, what would change? Now, SSDs are completely different from hard drives. They don't have seeks as such. If you
Wow,
have
that's a
5
huge
gigabyte a
difference.
second SSD, you can read data from 1,000
Bandwidth on
locations
PS4,
per second.
50 to 100 megabytes. PS5
As for
SSD,
time to load a gigabyte,
5
this is
gigabytes?
next gen we're talking
Wow.
about. So memory is bigger. Instead, we should be asking how long to load 2 gigabytes.
That's crazy.
And the answer is about 1/4 of a second. That's amazing. We're talking 2 orders of magnitude. I mean, very roughly 100 times faster.
Wow.
Which
That's
means that 5
okay.
gigabytes a second for the SSD.
That's pretty
the
insane.
potential is that the game
That is
boots in
pretty
seconds.
insane right there.
There are no load screens. The game just fades
I look
down,
tired?
loading
Really?
a half dozen gigabytes. It fades
I don't
back up
I
again.
don't feel super
So
tired.
for a reload, you're immediately back in the action after you die. And fast travel becomes so fast it's blink and you miss it. As game creators, we go from trying to distract the player from how long fast travel is taking, like those Spider-Man subway rides, to being so blindingly
Do I look
fast that you
tired?
might even have to slow that transition down. Pretty cool, right? But for me, this is not the primary reason to change from a hard drive to an SSD. The primary reason for an ultra-fast SSD is that it gives the game designer freedom. Or to put that
Freedom!
differently, with a hard drive, the 20 seconds that it takes to load a gigabyte can sabotage the game that the developer is trying to create. I think almost all of us in the room have experienced this, maybe in different ways. Say we're making an adventure game and we have two rich environments where we each want enough textures and models to fill memory, which you can do as long as you have a long staircase or elevator ride or a windy corridor where you can ditch the old assets and then take 30 seconds or so to load new assets. Having a 30-second elevator ride is a little extreme. More realistically, we'd probably chop the world into a number of smaller pieces and then do some calculations with sight lines and run speeds like we did for Haven City when we were making Jak 2. The game is 20 years old, but not much has changed since then. All those twisty passages are there for a reason. There's a whole subset of level design dedicated to this sort of work, but still, it's a giant distraction for a team that just wants to make their game.
Yeah,
So
I don't feel tired, man, but
SSD,
maybe I'm more tired than I think I am. Maybe I'm just running on pure adrenaline right now and coffee.
As in, what if the SSD is so fast that
Could I turn up the volume a little bit? Sure, of course.
It's possible to load textures for
Of
everything
course.
behind player
Of
in
course
a
I
split
can.
second. If you figure that
No
it takes
problem.
half a second to turn, that's 4 gigabytes of compressed data you can load. That sounds about right for next gen. Anyway, back to the hard drive. Another strategy for increasing effective read speed is to make big sequential chunks of data.
Is that better?
For example, we might group all the data together for each city block. That removes most of the seeks, and the streaming gets faster. But there's a downside too, which is that frequently used data is included in many chunks and therefore is on the hard drive many, many times. Marvel's Spider-Man uses this strategy, and though it works very well for increasing the streaming speed, there's a massive duplication as a result. Some of the objects like mailboxes or news racks are on the hard drive 400 times. What I'm describing here are things that cramp creative director style. Either level design gets a little bit boring in places, or the data is duplicated so many times that it no longer fits on the Blu-ray disc. And you end up with hard limits on the player's run speed or driving speed. The player can't go faster than the load speed from the hard drive.
No problem.
Funnily,
No problem
I'm sure
at
many
all.
of you have noticed that
I'm
after a
here to
patch
please.
download,
I'm
the
here to
PlayStation
please.
4 will sometimes take a long time to install the patch.
So
That's
it sounds
because
like
when just part of a file has been changed, the new data can be downloaded pretty quickly. But before the game boots up, a brand new file has to be constructed that includes the changed portion. Otherwise, every change would add a seek or two. Even so, you can occasionally see this happening on game titles. They start to hitch once they get patched enough. With an SSD, though, no seeks, so no need to make brand new files with the changes incorporated into them, which means no installs as you know them today.
that's cool. That's
There's
actually
yet
really
one
cool
more
stuff.
benefit, which that
So
system
basically,
memory can be used much more efficiently.
There won't be any more
On PlayStation 4,
duplicate
game
type
data
of
on the
stuff going
hard
on in
drive feels
games.
very
Like they can
distant
just
and
create
difficult to
fresh
use.
stuff
By the time you realize
in the
you
entire
need a piece
world
of data,
at all
it's
times.
much too late to go out and load it. So system memory has to contain all of the data that could be used in the next 30 seconds or so of gameplay. That means a lot of the 8 gigabytes of system memory is idle. It's just waiting there to be potentially used. On PlayStation 5, though, the SSD is very close to being like more RAM. Typically, it's fast enough that when you realize you need a piece of data, you can just load it from the SSD and use it. There's no need to have lots of
I don't know if I'll
data
buy
parked
the
in
new
system
Xbox
memory
or
waiting to
PS5.
potentially be used. A
I'm
different
definitely
way of
going
saying that
PS5
is that
for sure.
most of RAM is working on the game's behalf. This
But
is one of the reasons
I'm a
that
PlayStation
16
guy, so,
gigabytes of
you know.
DDR6 feels right for PlayStation 5. The presence of the SSD reduces the need for a massive intergenerational
I love
increase
their
in
original
size.
games and stuff.
So,
you
back
know.
to the dream of the SSD. Here's the set of targets. Boot the game in a second. No load screens. Design freedom,
No
meaning
load
no
screens.
twisty passages or long corridors. More game on the disk, more game on the SSD. And finally, those patch installs go away. The reality, though, is that the SSD is
Wow.
just one piece of the puzzle. There's a lot of places where bottlenecks can occur in between the SSD and the game code that uses the data. You can see this on PlayStation 4. If I use an SSD with 10 times the speed of a standard hard drive, I probably see only double the loading speed, if that. For PlayStation 5, our goal was not just that the SSD itself be 100 times faster. It was that game loads and streaming would be 100 times faster. So every single potential bottleneck needed to be addressed. And there are a lot of them. Let's look at check-in. and what happens when its overhead gets 100 times larger. Conceptually, check-in is a pretty simple process. Data is loaded into system memory from the hard drive or SSD. It's examined, a few values are tweaked to check it in, and then it's moved to its final location. At the SSD speeds we're talking about, that last part, moving the data, meaning copying it from one location to another, takes roughly an entire next-gen CPU core. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. If all the overheads get 100 times larger, that will cripple the frame rate as soon as the player moves, and that massive stream of data starts coming off the SSD. So to solve all of that, we built a lot of custom hardware, namely a custom flash controller and a number of custom units in our main chip. The flash controller in the SSD was designed for smooth and bottleneck-free operation, but also with games in mind. For example, there are 6 levels of priority when reading from the SSD. Priority is very important. You can imagine the player heading into some new location in the world and the game requesting a few gigabytes of textures. And while those textures are being loaded, an enemy is shot and has to speak a few dying words. Having multiple priority levels lets the audio for those dying words get loaded immediately.
Okay.
On one side, that flash controller connects.
So basically, the PlayStation 5 is going to be freaking fast. It's going to be really, really fast.
5 gigabytes a second, we ended up with 12-channel interface. 8 channels wouldn't be enough. The resulting bandwidth we've achieved is actually 5.5 gigabytes a second. With a 12-channel interface, the most natural size that emerges for an SSD is 825 gigabytes. The key question for us was, is that enough? I mean, it's tempting to add more, but Flash certainly doesn't come cheap. And we have a responsibility.
Yeah, if you're a PC gamer, PlayStation might be the best way to go.
What we put in the console.
Then you can kind of have the best of both worlds now.
Ultimately, we resolved this question by looking at the play patterns of a broad range of gamers. We examined the specific games that they were playing over the course of a weekend or a week or a month, and whether that set of games would fit properly on the SSD.
Is it me, or did his voice just go up a little bit more?
The friction caused by reinstalls or re-downloads would be quite low, and so we locked in on that 825 gigabytes.
Am I just imagining things?
While also preparing multiple strategies so that those who want more storage can add it. I'll go through the details in a moment. Back to the flash controller. On the other side, it connects to our main custom chip via 4 lanes of Gen 4 PCIe.
Okay.
And inside the main custom chip is a pretty hefty unit dedicated to I/O. Before we talk about what that does, let's talk compression for a moment. PlayStation 4 used zlib as its compression format. We decided to use it again on PlayStation 5, but on my 2017 tour of developers, I learned about a new format called Kraken from Rad Game Tools. It's like zlib's smarter cousin. Simple, similar types of algorithms, but about 10% better compression, which is pretty big. That means 10% more game on the UHD Blu-ray disc or on the SSD. Kraken had only been out for a year, but it was already becoming a de facto industry standard. Half of the teams I talked to were either using it or getting ready to evaluate it. So we hustled and built a custom decompressor into the I/O unit, one capable of handling over 5 gigabytes of Kraken format input data a second. After decompression, that typically becomes 8 or 9 gigabytes, but the unit itself is capable of outputting as much as 22 gigabytes a second if the data happen to compress particularly well. By the way, in terms of performance, that custom decompressor equates to 9 of our Zen 2 cores. That's what it would take to decompress the Kraken.
Dude talks like an android.
CPU. There's a lot more in the
custom I/O unit, including
now his voice just went back down a little bit. What the heck?
The game can direct exactly where it wants to send the data coming off of the SSD. This equates to another Zen 2 core or 2 in terms of its copy performance.
They must be having some technical difficulties or something.
As a bottleneck. There's 2 dedicated I/O coprocessors and a large RAM pool. These aren't Zen 2 cores. They're principally to direct the variety of custom hardware around them.
My nephew is a huge PlayStation fan and owns them all, but I was sometimes very disappointed.
File I/O and its bottlenecks when reading from the SSD. The other is responsible for memory mapping, which I know doesn't sound like anything related to the SSD, but a lot of developers map and remap memory as part of file I/O, and this too can become a bottleneck. There are coherency engines to assist the coprocessors. Coherency comes up a lot in places. Probably the biggest coherency issue is stale data in the GPU caches. Flushing all of the GPU caches whenever the SSD is read is an unattractive option. It could really hurt the GPU performance. So we've implemented a gentler way of doing things.
A gentler
where the
way?
coherency
I don't like how he
engines
said gentler.
inform the GPU of the overwritten address ranges, and custom scrubbers in several dozen GPU caches do pinpoint evictions of just those address ranges. The best thing is, as a game developer, when you read from the SSD, you don't need to know any of this. You don't even need to know that your data is compressed. You just indicate what data you'd like to read from your original uncompressed file and where you'd like to put it, and the whole process of loading it happens invisibly to you and at very high speed. Back to the dream. Thanks to all of that surrounding hardware, our 5.5 gigabytes a second really should translate into something like
It sounds like a
100
very
times
boring
faster
teacher.
than PS4,
Yeah.
and allow the dream of no load screens and
He really
super fast
does,
streaming
actually.
to become a reality. Having said that, expandability of our
He sounds like almost every... Oh! Uh-oh.
Now, the kind of
Oh my
storage
gosh,
you
somebody...
use depends on how you're going to use it.
Somebody
If you
from
have an
IGN
extensive
accidentally turned
PlayStation
off the
4
audio.
library and you'd like to take
That's
advantage of
hilarious.
backwards compatibility
That's
to play those games
hilarious.
on PlayStation 5, then a large external hard drive is ideal. You can leave your games on the hard drive and play them directly
His
from
voice
there,
just went up
thus
again.
saving the pricier SSD storage for your PlayStation 5 titles, or you can copy your active PlayStation 4 titles to the SSD. If your purpose in adding more storage is to play PlayStation 5 titles, though, ideally you would add to your SSD storage. We will be supporting certain M2 SSDs. These are internal drives that you can get on the open market and install in a bay in the PlayStation 5. As for which ones we support and when, I'll get to that in a moment. They connect.
If you had a
through the
history
custom
teacher who
I/O
was not
unit, just
boring,
like
you are
our
very
SSD
lucky.
does. So
And
they
I'm
can take
kind of
full
jealous.
advantage of the decompression,
Not gonna
I/O
lie.
coprocessors, and all the other features.
I
was talking
freaking love history, too.
Here's the catch, though. That commercial drive has to be at least as fast as ours. Games that rely on the speed of our SSD need to work flawlessly with any M2 drive. When I gave the Wired interview last year, I said that the PlayStation 5 SSD was faster than anything available on PC. At the time, commercial M2 drives used PCIe 3.0, and 4 lanes of that cap out at 3.5 gigabytes a second. In other words, no PCIe 3.0 drive can hit the required spec. M2 drives with PCIe 4.0 are now out in the market. We're getting samples and seeing 4 or 5 gigabytes a second from them. By year's end, I expect there will be drives that saturate 4.0 and support 7 gigabytes a second. Having said that, we are comparing apples and oranges, though, because that commercial M2 drive will have its own architecture, its own flash controller.
The
and
guys
so
at
on.
IGN are
For
so
example,
bored that they play with the
NVMe
volume.
specification lays out a priority scheme for
Oh,
requests
man.
that the M2 drives can use. And that scheme is pretty nice, but it only has 2 true
Where are the
priority
games?
levels.
I know, right?
Our drives support 6.
Like, yeah, this is
We can
cool.
hook up a drive with only 2 priority levels.
We
Definitely,
get it.
But our custom
PlayStation
I/O
5 is
unit
going to be
has
freaking
arbitrate the extra priority,
absolute
rather than
beast
the
of a
M2
machine.
drive's flash controller. And so
We
the
get it,
M2 drive needs
but,
a
like,
little extra speed to take care of issues
where's the
arising
games,
from the
though,
different
right?
approach. That commercial drive also needs to physically fit inside of the bay we created in PlayStation 5 for M2
Or at
drives.
least I want to at least see it,
Unlike
right?
internal
I want to
hard drives,
see
there's
what it looks
unfortunately
like.
no standard for the height of an M2 drive.
I
And
swear,
some
if they
M2
do
drives
not
have
show what the
giant
PlayStation
heat
5
sinks.
is
In
going to
fact,
look like,
some of
I
them
will
even have
lose
their
my
own
mind.
fans. Right now, we're getting M2 drive samples and benchmarking them in various ways. When games hit beta as they get ready for the PlayStation 5 launch at year end, we'll also be doing some compatibility testing to make sure that the architecture of particular M2 drives isn't too foreign for the games to handle. Once we've done that compatibility testing, we should be able to start letting you know which drives will physically fit and which drive samples have benchmarked appropriately high in our testing. It would be great if that happened by launch, but it's likely to be a bit past it. So please hold off on getting that M2 drive until you hear from us. Okay, back to our principles. Balancing evolution and revolution is the second of them. This was definitely a recurring theme with the GPU. We need new GPU features and capabilities. If we only have more performance, it's not really a new generation of console. Of course, many of these capabilities result in more performance. That's part of why a PlayStation 5 teraflop is more powerful than a PlayStation 4 teraflop. But we aren't just looking for the performance. We also need the ability to do something with the GPU that could not have been done before. And we need higher performance per watt. Every time we double the performance of some GPU component, we don't want to find out we've doubled the power consumed and the heat produced. But at the same time, we have to make sure the GPU can run PS4 games, and we have to ensure that the architecture is easy for the developers to adopt. Now, backwards compatibility was handled masterfully by AMD.
Backwards
They treated it as a
compatibility,
key need
everybody.
throughout the design
That is
process.
awesome.
As our solution to
awesome.
adding new features without blindsiding developers, we made sure that if there were new significant features, it would be optional to use them. The GPU supports ray tracing, but you don't have to use ray tracing to make your game. The GPU supports primitive shaders, but you can release your first game on
Yeah,
PlayStation
finding a
5
conservative
without
teacher in
making
this
any
day and age
use
is like nearly
Before
impossible.
I get into the capabilities of the GPU, I'd like to make clear
Sadly.
2 points that can be quite confusing.
Not totally impossible,
First,
but
we have a
almost.
custom AMD GPU based on their RDNA.
Especially in,
2
like,
technology.
universities and
What
stuff.
does that mean? AMD is continuously improving and revising their tech. For RDNA 2, their goals
Oh,
were,
thanks for
roughly
subscribing,
speaking,
Deplorable.
to
I appreciate
reduce
that, man.
power consumption
I appreciate
by
that a lot.
re-architecting the GPU to put data close to where it's needed, to optimize the GPU for performance, and to add a new, more advanced
Thanks,
feature
man.
set.
I really appreciate that a
But
lot.
that feature set is malleable. Which
I
is
just
to
started the
say that
second
we have
channel like a week
our own
ago
needs
or
for
so.
PlayStation, and that can factor
It's pretty
into
new,
what the
so
AMD roadmap
I'm
becomes.
excited to continue to build it
Collaboration is
up
born.
here.
If we bring
chill with you
concepts
guys.
to AMD that are felt to be widely useful, then they can be adopted into RDNA 2 and used broadly, including in PC GPUs. If the ideas are sufficiently specific to what we're trying to accomplish, like the GPU cache scrubbers I was talking about,
those
then they
cardboard
end up
cutouts in
being
the
just
foreground?
for us. If you see
Oh,
a
man, I was wondering
similar
that myself,
discrete GPU
too.
available as a PC card at roughly the same
I don't think
time
they
as we
moved a
released
single
our
time, have
console,
they?
That means our collaboration with AMD succeeded.
That'd be
In producing
hilarious.
technology useful in both worlds. It doesn't mean that we as Sony simply incorporated the PC part into our console. This continuous improvement in AMD technology means it's dangerous to rely
Okay,
on
they are
teraflops
moving a
as
little
an
bit.
absolute indicator of performance.
Not very
And
much, though.
CPU count should be avoided as well. In the case of CPUs,
Hey,
we all
Glowin'.
understand this. The PlayStation 4
How
and
you doing?
PlayStation
How you
5
doing today?
each have 8 CPUs, but we never think that meant the capabilities and performance are equal. It's the same for CUs. For one thing, they've been getting much larger over time. Adding new features means adding lots of transistors. In fact, the transistor count for a PlayStation 5 CU is 62% larger than the transistor count for a PlayStation 4 CU. Second, the PlayStation 5 GPU is backwards compatible with PlayStation 4. What does that mean? One way you can achieve backwards compatibility is to put the previous console's chipset in the new console, like we did with some PlayStation 3s, but that's of course extremely expensive. A better way is to incorporate any differences in the previous console's logic into the new console's custom chips, meaning that even as the technology evolves, the logic and feature set that PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro titles rely on is still available in backwards compatibility modes. One advantage of this strategy is that once backwards
I'm just glad that we're
compatibility is in
getting
the
backwards
console, it's
compatibility
in.
in PS5.
If not as
I
if
think
a
that's
cost
awesome.
down will
It's
remove
about
backwards
freaking time,
compatibility like it did
PlayStation.
on
It's about
PlayStation 3.
time.
Achieving this unification of functionality took years of efforts by AMD, as any roadmap advancement creates a potential divergence in logic. Running PS4 and PS4 titles at boosted frequencies has also added complexity. The boost is truly massive this time around, and some game code just can't handle it. Testing has to be done on a title-by-title basis. Results are excellent, though. We recently took a look at the top 100 PlayStation 4 titles as ranked by playtime, and we're expecting almost all of them to be playable at launch on PlayStation 5.
Nice. That is good.
With
That is
regards
good stuff.
to new features, as I said, our strategy was to try to break new ground, but at the same time not to require use of the new GPU capabilities. For more than a decade,
I have 2 daughters,
GPUs
and
have
when they
imposed
come
a restriction
home
on
from
gamers.
school and are
Software
telling me
handles
what they
vertex
have
processing,
learned,
but
sometimes I
for
think
the
I'll
most
lose my
part,
mind.
Dedicated hardware is
Leftist
responsible
crap,
for the
indoctrination
triangles
at
and
its
other
best.
geometry that the vertices form.
That's what they do.
That means it's not possible
they
to
do.
do even basic optimizations, such as aborting processing of a vertex if all geometry that uses it is off-screen. PlayStation 5 has a new unit called the Geometry Engine, which brings handling of triangles and other primitives under full programmatic control. As a game developer, you're free to ignore its existence and use the PlayStation 5 GPU as if it were no more capable than
Hopefully your
the
daughters
PS4
aren't buying
GPU.
too much into
Or
it.
you can use this new intelligence in various ways. Simple usage could be performance optimization, such as removing backfaced or off-screen vertices and triangles. More complex usage involves something called primitive shaders, which allow the game to synthesize geometry on the fly as it's being rendered. It's a brand new capability. Using primitive shaders on PlayStation 5 will allow for a broad variety of techniques, including smoothly varying level of detail, addition of procedural detail to close-up objects, and improvements to particle effects and other visual special effects. Another major new feature of our custom RDNA 2-based GPU is ray tracing, using the same strategy as AMD's upcoming PC GPUs.
Ooh,
The CUs contain
nice.
a new
That is
specialized
actually
unit
pretty
called
huge.
the intersection engine, which can calculate the intersection
Man,
of
that
rays
is
with
pretty
boxes
big, because
and
that's going to
triangles.
really
use
improve the
intersection
graphics
engine, first you build what is
big
called
time
an acceleration
for
structure.
PlayStation.
It's data in RAM that contains all of your geometry. There's a specific set of formats you can use. They're variations on the same BVH.
Wonder what
concept.
sales will be like
Then,
on day
in your
one.
shader
Oh, I think it's going to be
program, you
just
use a new
insane.
instruction that asks the intersection engine to check a ray against the BVH. While the intersection engine is processing the requested ray triangle or ray box intersections, the shaders are free to do other work. Having said that, the ray tracing instruction is pretty memory intensive, so it's a good mix with logic-heavy code. There's of course no need to use ray tracing. PS4 graphics engines will run just fine on PlayStation 5, but it presents an opportunity for those interested. I'm thinking it'll take less than 1 million rays a second to have a big impact on audio. That should be enough for audio occlusion and some reverb calculations. With a bit more of the GPU invested in ray tracing, it should be possible to do some very nice global illumination. Having said that, adding ray traced shadows
I was
and
wondering that
reflections
myself,
to a traditional
Deplorable. I was
graphics
wondering if
engine
they were going
could
to
easily take
delay
hundreds of
the
millions of
release
rays a
because
second,
of the
and full
virus
ray
and stuff.
tracing could take
I guess it just depends.
How
It
far
depends
can we
on
go?
if,
I'm
you know, if
starting
we're
to get
still
quite
dealing
bullish.
with
I've
all
already
this
seen
crap by
PlayStation 5
the end of the
title
year.
that's
I
successfully
could definitely
using
see.
ray-tracing-based
I could
reflections
definitely see
in
them
complex animated scenes with
rescheduling
only
the
modest
release.
costs. Another set of issues
I
for
hope
the
we're still not
GPU
dealing with
involve
coronavirus by the
size
end of the
and
year.
frequency.
That would be
How
not
big do
good.
we make the
That would
GPU,
not be
and
good
what
at all.
frequency do we run
So
it at?
we'll see.
This is a
We'll
balancing
definitely see.
act. The chip has a cost.
Hey
and there's a
Cameron,
cost for
welcome to the
whatever we
stream, my
use to
friend.
supply that chip with power
How you doing?
and
How you
support.
doing today?
In general, I like running the GPU at higher frequency. Let me show you why. Here's 2 possible configurations for a GPU roughly
Hey,
at the
Alex
level
Plays.
of the PlayStation
How's it going,
4
my
Pro.
friend?
This is a thought experiment.
thanks,
Don't take
man.
these
I appreciate
configurations
that.
Too seriously. If
I
you
appreciate
just
your support.
calculate
Thanks for being here.
teraflops, you get the same number. But actually, the performance is
Appreciate that,
noticeably
Alex.
different because teraflops is defined as the computational capability of the vector ALU. That's just one part of the GPU. There are a lot of other units. And those other units all run faster when the GPU frequency is higher. At 33% higher frequency, rasterization goes 33% faster. Processing the command buffer goes that much faster. The L2 and other caches have that much higher bandwidth, and so on. About the only downside is that system memory is 33% further away in terms of cycles. But the large number of benefits more than counterbalance that. As a friend of mine says, a rising tide lifts all boats. Also, it's easier to fully
What a
use
friend.
36
What a
CUs
friend.
in
That is
parallel
one wise
than it is
friend
to
he
fully
has
use
there.
48 CUs. When triangles are
I'm
small,
doing
it's
good,
much
Alex.
harder to fill all those CUs with useful work.
We got 11 people in the
So there's
chat
a
right
lot
now.
to
That
be
is
said for
awesome. Thanks,
faster,
guys.
assuming
I
we
appreciate
can
you all
handle
being
the
here. Could you
resulting
guys
power and
make sure
heat
that you're
issues,
smashing the
which,
like
frankly,
button?
we
I'd
haven't
greatly appreciate
always
that.
done the best job at.
Awesome seeing you
Part of
all
the reason
here.
for
Thank
that
you.
is, historically, our process for setting CPU and GPU frequencies has relied on some heavy-duty guesswork with regards to how much electrical power games will consume
Yeah,
and how
I
much
bet.
heat will be
I
produced
bet they
as
are
a result
deplorable.
inside of the
I hear
console.
that Germany's
Power consumption varies
doing a pretty
lot
good
from
job
game
of
to game.
handling it so
when
far,
I play
though,
God
which
of
is
War
good to
on
hear.
my PS4 Pro, I know the power consumption is high just by the fan noise. But power isn't simply about engine quality. It's about the minutia of what's being displayed and how. It's counterintuitive, but processing dense geometry typically consumes less power than processing simple geometry, which is, I suspect, why Horizon's map screen with its low triangle count, makes my PS4 Pro heat up so much.
That's interesting.
Our
I
process
never
on
knew
previous
that.
consoles has been to try to guess what the maximum power consumption during the entire console lifetime might be, which is to say, the worst case scene in the worst case game, and prepare a cooling solution that we think will be quiet at that power level. If we get it right, fan noise is minimal. If we get it wrong, the console will be quite loud for the higher power games, and there's even a chance that it might overheat and shut down if we misestimate power too badly. PlayStation 5 is especially challenging because the CPU
If my PlayStation 5 overheats, I'm not going to be happy about
that consume a lot of power. These are great here and there, but presumably only minimally used. Or are they? If we plan for major 256-bit instruction usage, we need to set the CPU clock substantially lower or noticeably increase the size of the power supply and fan. So, after much discussion, we decided to go with a very different direction on PlayStation 5. We built a GPU with 36 CUs. Mind you, RDNA 2 CUs are large. Each has 62% more transistors than the CUs we were using on PlayStation 4.
ICU.
So if we compare transistor counts, 36
This is what I always do with your Geeks and Gamers videos. Hit the like button before I watch them. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that a lot.
Sizable GPU.
You should play Overwatch, not just Warzone.
Yeah,
I'm actually going to be playing. I'm going to start playing Doom Eternal this weekend. That's my plan, at least. So. That's going to be pretty awesome. I'm excited for that. Saturday is probably going to be a big day. We're just going to play a lot of Doom Eternal. So I hope you're excited about that.
Cooling solution. It's a completely different paradigm. Rather than running at constant frequency and letting power vary based on the workload, we run at essentially constant power and let the frequency vary based on the workload.
Okay.
We then tackled the engineering challenge of a cost-effective and high-performance.
Hear from your other channel, which is great. Keep up the great content and real talk. Thanks, Domino. I appreciate that a lot, man.
It becomes a simpler problem because there are no more unknowns. There's no need to guess
I guess I don't know what you are.
Game might have.
But thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
Cooling solution. We're saving them for our teardown. I think you'll be quite happy with what the engineering team came up with. So, how fast can we run the GPU and CPU with this strategy? The simplest approach would be to look at the actual temperature of the silicon die and throttle the frequency on that basis. But that won't work. It fails to create a consistent PlayStation 5 experience. It wouldn't do to run a console slower simply because it was in a hot room. So rather than look at the actual temperature of the silicon
I wish this guy's voice
look
was
at the
so
activities
soy,
that the
to be
GPU
honest.
and CPU are performing and set the frequencies on that basis, which makes everything deterministic and repeatable. While we're at it, we also use AMD's Smart Shift
dude, Red Dead 2 is amazing. I love Red Dead 2.
From the CPU to the GPU, so it can squeeze out.
Sire, my favorite G&G YouTuber, separate topic. Matt Jarbo made a video crying that nobody tips him as an Uber Eats driver.
GPU at 2 gigahertz is looking like an unreachable target with the old fixed frequency strategy.
I don't feel
with
bad
this
for
new
Matt at all.
paradigm, we're able to run way over that. In fact, we have to cap
that's
the
incredible.
GPU frequency at 2.23 gigahertz so that we can guarantee that the
Poor
on-chip
Matt.
logic
Poor
operates
Matt.
properly. 36 CUs at
Poor Matty
2.23 gigahertz is 10.3 teraflops, and we expect the GPU to spend most of its time at or close to that frequency and performance. Similarly, running the CPU at 3 gigahertz was causing headaches with the old strategy. But now we can run it as high as 3.5 gigahertz. In fact, it spends most of its time at that frequency. That doesn't mean all games will be running at 2.23 gigahertz and 3.5 gigahertz. When that worst case game arrives, it will run at a lower clock speed, but not too much lower. To reduce power by 10%, it only takes a couple of percent reduction in frequency, so I'd expect any downclocking to be pretty minor. All things considered, the change to a variable frequency approach will show significant gains for PlayStation gamers. The final of our 3 principles was about finding new dreams. It's
finding new dreams,
for
everybody.
us on the hardware team to find
Unicorns
new
and
ways
rainbows.
to expand or deepen gaming, and that's what led us to a focus on 3D audio. As players,
3D
we
audio,
experience the game
okay.
through the visuals, through audio, and through the feedback we receive from the controller,
I'm
such as
hyped about
rumble
this.
or haptics. Personally, I feel a game is just dead without audio. Visuals are, of course, important, but the impact of audio is huge as well. At the same time, the audio team on a game project has to do a lot with a little. For example, on PlayStation 4, there's fierce competition for the Jaguar CPU cores. Audio typically ends up getting just a fraction of a core. That's not much of a computational resource, particularly when you consider that the visuals run at 30 or 60 frames
I don't like the way he smiles.
but audio processing needs to happen
freaks
at
me out a
almost
little bit.
200 times a second. So, it's been tough going making forward
This
progress on
dude's
audio
voice
on
sounds like he
PlayStation 4,
reads stories to
particularly
children.
when
Oh my
PlayStation
gosh.
3
I would
was
never
such a
want this
beast
guy
when
to
it
read
came
stories to
audio.
my child.
The SPUs in Cell were almost a perfect device for
Are
audio
you a sports
rendering.
fan?
Simple pipelined algorithms
Not really.
could really take advantage
Not
of
really
asynchronous
that much of a
DNA
sports fan.
and frequently reached 100% utilization of the floating point unit. There's unfortunately nothing comparable on PlayStation 4.
I don't mind playing sports, but I'm
Probably
not really
the most dramatic
I don't
progress
really
in the
enjoy
PlayStation 4
watching
generation
sports
has
that
been
much.
with virtual reality. The
that make
PSVR
sense?
hardware has its own audio unit. It supports about 50 pretty decent 3D sound sources. And this provided a hint as to where we could go with audio, as well as some valuable experience. Not to oversimplify, but here were our goals for audio on PlayStation 5. The first goal was great audio for everyone, not just VR users or soundbar
audio
owners
for
or headphone
everyone.
users. That meant audio had to be part of the console. It couldn't be a peripheral. The second goal was to support hundreds of sound sources. We didn't want developers to have to pick and choose what sounds would get 3D effects and which wouldn't. We wanted every sound.
Thank
in
you,
the game
Alex. I
to have
appreciate that.
dimensionality. And finally, we wanted to really take on the challenges of presence.
And that's
locality.
totally fine, you know.
Now, when we say presence,
All the consoles
we
have
mean
their
the
their
feeling
ups
that
and
you're
downs
actually
and
there.
pros and
You've
cons.
entered the matrix.
And that's fine, you know.
It's not, of
That's
course,
fine.
something we thought we could perfectly achieve.
It's
The
okay to be
idea was
wrong,
that if we
Alex. It's
stopped
okay to be
using
wrong.
just arraign sound, and instead
just kidding.
use
Thank you.
lots
Thank you
of
for
3D
helping me
audio
out, man.
sources for
Thanks for your
raindrops
support.
hitting the ground at all sorts of locations around you, then at some point your brain would take a leap and you'd begin to have this feeling of real presence inside the virtual world of the game. This has the capacity to affect your appreciation of the game, just like music in a game does. The concept of locality is simple.
I'm a huge
It's
audio
just your sense of where the
geek
audio
when
is
it comes
coming
to
from. To the
games
right
and
of you,
stuff.
behind
So
you,
this
above
is
you.
cool
This
stuff.
can immerse you further in the game, and it can also directly enhance the gameplay.
The more immersive the audio,
To
the
use
better.
Dead Space as an example, I know, old school. You're fighting enemies in
know,
fairly dark,
old school.
spooky locations. Back in the day, if you played the game using the TV speakers, you could tell that there was one last enemy growling and hunting you down, but it was difficult to tell quite where that enemy was. With headphones, you could tell that the enemy was somewhere on the right, which let you deduce, if you couldn't see it, that it must be somewhere behind and to your right. But with 3D audio with good locality, the idea is you know the enemy is precisely there, and you turn and you take it out. So, how do we know where a sound is coming from in the first place? Well, all those bumps and folds in the ear have a meaning, evolutionarily speaking, based on what direction the sound is
No,
coming
baseball,
from.
I thought
Some
every
words
American
bounce
loves
around inside
baseball.
the
I
ear.
like
There's
playing
some
baseball,
constructive and
but I'm not
destructive
really a big fan of
interference,
just
and the
watching
result is a
baseball.
change
I'd
in
rather
volume.
just do it, you know?
The phase of the sound also shifts, depending on what path
Same with
the
football.
sound wave took
Like,
to
I've
reach
played
the
both
canal.
football and baseball
These
many
volume
times.
changes and phase
And I
shifts
like
are
playing it.
different
I'm
for
just
each
not really a big
direction
fan
and
of
also vary
watching
depending on the
it.
frequency of the sound.
I don't know.
Head size and head shape also impact
Late
the
night
sound
shows
in a similar
temporarily
fashion.
canceled due to
The
virus
way that the
concerns.
sound
Wow.
changes based
That's
on
probably
direction
the
and
best thing to ever
frequency
happen,
can be encoded
ever.
in a table called the head-related transfer
Thank you,
function,
coronavirus.
or HRTF.
Thank you.
Here's part of one. The vertical axis is the frequency, the horizontal axis is the direction, front, back, left, right, and the color gives the degree of attenuation of the sound at that frequency. The HRTF is as unique to an individual as a
Hey, Star
fingerprint.
Rose.
In
How
fact,
you
you're
doing?
looking at
Thank you for
mine
being
right
here. I appreciate it.
Here's how we measure an HRTF. We've taken hundreds of people through this process. We put a microphone in the subject's left and right ear canals.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then
This
sit the
definitely could have
subject
used a better
down in the
presenter
middle
for
of an
sure.
array of 22
For
speakers.
sure.
We then play an audio sweep from each speaker as we rotate the subject. In the course of 10 or 20 minutes, we're able to sample the HRTF at over 1,000 locations. Using an HRTF when rendering audio creates unparalleled quality, but it's computationally expensive. The simplest way to use an HRTF is to process a sound source to make it appear as if it's coming from one of those 1,000 locations we sample. Unfortunately, the processing has to be done in frequency domain rather than time domain, so there's multiple fast Fourier transforms needed for every sound source for every audio tick. That's a lot of multiplies.
Wow.
This
Okay.
computational complexity was the determining factor for our strategy. It meant we had to bite the bullet and design and build a custom hardware unit for 3D audio.
5th generation of
Collectively, we're referring
PlayStation.
to the hardware
Crazy.
unit and the proprietary algorithms
Crazy.
we run on it as Tempest.
I'm
3D
glad
audio
coronavirus
tech.
canceled
The
Lily
meaning of
Singh's
3D
thingy.
audio and technology.
That is probably
should be
the
pretty
greatest thing
obvious here.
that has ever
As
happened
for Tempest, I feel
for
it
humanity.
really
So,
reflects
yeah.
our goals with audio. It suggests a certain intensity of experience and also hints at your presence within it. We're calling the hardware unit that we built the Tempest engine. It's based on AMD's GPU technology. We modified a compute unit in such a way as to make it very close to the SPUs in PlayStation 3. Remember when I said that they were ideal for audio? So the Tempest engine has
Do you remember
no
when I
caches,
said that it's
just like an
ideal
SPU.
for audio?
All data access is via DMA, just
This
like
dude
an
isn't a
SPU.
presenter or
Our
human.
target was that it would have more power than a CPU, thanks to the parallelism that a GPU can achieve, and that it would be more efficient than our GPU, thanks to the SPU-like architecture. The goal being to make possible near 100% utilization of the CU's vector units. Where we ended up is a unit with roughly the same SIMD power and bandwidth as all 8 Jaguar cores in the PlayStation 4 combined. If we were to use the same algorithms as PSVR, that's
Yep,
enough
that's
for
Marvel
something
for
like
you.
5,000
Snowflake and safe
sound
space.
sources. But of course, we want to use more complex algorithms, and we don't need anything like that
Snowflake
number
and
of
safe
sounds.
space. I still can't get over that.
It would have been
What?
wonderful if a simpler strategy,
Snowflake
such as
and safe
using
space.
Dolby Atmos
Actual
peripherals, could have
superhero
achieved our
names.
goals. But we wanted 3D audio for all, not just those with licensed soundbars or the like. Also, we wanted many hundreds of sound sources, not just the 32 that Atmos supports. And finally, we wanted to be able to throw an overwhelming amount of processing power at the problem, and it wasn't clear what any peripheral might have inside of it. In fact, with the Tempest engine, we've even got enough power that we can allocate some to the games, to the extent that games want to make use of convolution reverb and other algorithms that are either computationally expensive or need high bandwidth. But the primary purpose of the Tempest engine remains 3D audio. Now, 3D audio is a major academic research topic. It's safe to say that no one in the world has all of the answers. And the set of algorithms that has to be invented, tuned, or implemented to realize our vision for 3D audio is immense. For example, use of HRTFs in games is quite complex. Before, I talked about making
I
a
don't think
sound
saying
source
the guy
appear
looks
as
like
if it's
Bill Gates
coming,
is super
from
insulting.
one of those 1,000 HRTF sample locations. But for high
Now,
quality
conservative
3D
comic
audio,
artists should create
we
2
have to
superheroes
handle
called
other
racist and
possibilities.
sexist.
The sound source might not
Oh
be
my
at one of
gosh.
the 1,000 HRTF sample locations, so we have to blend the HRTF
There will
data from
probably
the
be
closest
villains
locations that we
in
have
Snowflake
sampled.
and Safe
The
Space
sound
comic
source might be
series
moving,
called
which
that,
needs
to be honest.
very special handling as
And
that
white
blend keeps
supremacists.
changing, and that can cause phase artifacts in the resulting audio. Or the sound source might have a size to it, meaning it should feel as if it's coming from an area rather than a single point. There's also whole categories of approaches.
All right,
to the
thanks for
handle.
stopping by, Alex.
3D
I
audio
appreciate
can
it.
be
Have a
implemented
great rest of
using
your day.
Individual processing of 3D sound sources.
Stay safe out there, man.
But alternatively, ambisonics can be used for 3D audio. Ambisonics being somewhat like the spherical harmonics used in computer graphics. And finally, there's audio devices. The player might be using headphones.
PS5
or
will
TV
probably have
speakers, or
better
have a
exclusives for
higher-end
sure.
surround
I
sound
definitely
setup
agree with that.
6 or more speakers. all of
PlayStation
which
is
need different
like on
approaches.
top of things when it comes to their
a lot of
exclusives,
variation.
for sure.
It's nice to have the
I mean, they're very,
computational
very good
resources of the
story-driven
Tempest
games. Almost
engine,
every single
but
one
it's
of them
clear
is.
that achieving
So.
our ultimate goals with 3D audio is going
Plus,
to be
I
a
mean,
multi-year,
The next God of
step-by-step
War is
process.
probably going to be coming on PlayStation
Having
5
said
as
that,
well,
headphone
which is going to be
audio
hype. I
implementation
can't
is
wait for that
largely
game.
complete at this time. It was a natural place for us to start. With headphones, we control exactly what each ear hears, and therefore the algorithmic development and implementation are more straightforward. For TV speakers and stereo speakers, we're in the process of implementing virtual surround sound. The idea being that if you're sitting in a sweet spot in front of the TV, then the sound can be made to feel as if it's coming from any direction, even behind you. Virtual surround sound has a lot in common with 3D audio on headphones, but it's more complex because the left ear can hear the right speaker and vice versa. We have a basic implementation of virtual surround sound up and running. We're now looking at increasing the size of that sweet spot, which is to say, making the area you need to be in
Spider-Man
to feel
2.
the 3D
That's
effect
definitely a possibility
larger.
too.
And we're also working to boost the sense of locality. Headphone audio is the current gold standard for 3D audio on PlayStation 5.
All right, see you, Domino. Thanks
but
for
we're
stopping
going to
by,
see
my
what
friend.
we can do to bring virtual surround sound to a similar level, after which we'll start in on setups with more speakers, such as 6-channel surround sound. It's now to the point where some of the PlayStation 5 games in development are extensively using these systems. One of the game demos allows you to toggle between conventional PlayStation 4 style stereo audio and our new 3D audio. I listened with just an ordinary pair of over-the-ear headphones, and wow, I could feel a difference. 3D audio has that dimensional feel to it. Conventional
I just want to see
stereo
what the
audio
PlayStation
feels
5 looks
smashed
like
flat
right
by
now.
comparison.
That's all I want, to
The
be honest.
improvement is
I just want to see
obvious.
what it looks like.
So, a big advancement, but have I entered the matrix? Does my brain believe I'm really there? Like I was talking about earlier when I explained our target of presence. Well, the answer is no, but you've probably caught on to what's missing here, namely whose HRTF was being used. It wasn't mine, it was the default HRTF. The audio team analyzed the hundreds that they measured and chose the one they felt was the closest fit to the total game playing audience. This shows a piece of the default HRTF on the left and my HRTF on the right. You can see that the general features are much the same, but the details are quite different. With the default HRTF, as I said, the 3D audio sounds pretty great. When I use my HRTF, though, the audio reaches a higher level of realism, which is to say that when using headphones and my HRTF, I occasionally get fooled and even think a sound is coming from the real world when it's actually coming from the game. A corollary to this is that there are a few people whose HRTFs are sufficiently far from the default HRTF, that's the red dot here, that they can toggle between PS4 style and PS5 style audio and not sense much difference. I've had a few people describe the PlayStation 5's 3D audio as sounding like a bit better stereo audio. Presumably they're the ones at the very edges of this diagram. Which means what HRTF you're using is key. I'd like everyone to be able to experience what I'm experiencing, but obviously it's not possible to measure the HRTF of every PlayStation user. That means HRTF selection and synthesis are going to be big topics going forward as the Tempest technology matures. At PlayStation 5 launch, we'll be offering a choice of 5 HRTFs. There's
Josiah, can
a
you speak
simple
German?
test where you pick the one that gives
I
you the
can't.
best locality. That's just the first step, though. This is an open-ended
cannot speak
research
German.
topic. Maybe
I'm
you'll
trying
be
to learn
sending us
Swedish
a
right
photo
now,
of your ear, and we'll
but I
choose
might
a
be
neural network
switching
pick the
to
closest HRTF in our library.
Old Norse. We'll
Maybe
see.
you'll be sending us a video of your ears and your
I have to
hand,
figure out
and
if
we'll
I
make a
have the
3D
time and
model of them
dedication
and
to learn
synthesize
Old
the
Norse, because
HRTF.
Old Norse is
Maybe
very
you'll play an audio
complex.
game to tune your HRTF. We'll be subtly changing it as you play and home in on the HRTF that gives you the highest score, meaning that it matches you the best. This is a journey we'll all be taking together over the next few years. Ultimately, we're committing to enabling everyone to experience that next level of realism. Hopefully,
good.
I've been able to
Now, can we
illustrate a
see
bit
it?
about our design
Can we
and
please see
decision-making
it?
process today and why PlayStation 5 has the feature set that it does. Now comes the fun part. We get to see how the
fun part.
development community takes advantage of that feature set.
Okay.
I'm hoping for the completely unexpected. Will it come from audio, ray tracing, the capabilities of the SSD, or something else? I guess we'll find out soon enough. Thank you for your time today.
What? Is that it? Okay. No, this is just gonna be IGN, I think. I wanted to see it. Feels bad, man. I wanted to see it. Now I'm disappointed. I mean, all of that stuff was cool, but you could have just, I don't know, like, I don't know. I don't know. They should have given us something to, like, something, like, super hyped at the end there. Like, something really, really cool. And I didn't really feel like we got that. Like, yeah, we found out that it was super fast. We found out that the system is like gonna be just an absolute beast, which is great. The audio is gonna be amazing. The graphics are going to be like PC graphics, which is insane. But they should have ended on a little bit more of a flare, a little bit more of a bang. And they didn't really. So what do you think, guys? What do you think about that? I barely understand what this guy is talking about. Wish he'd dumb it down to for some of us. Yeah, I think especially if you like. All right, I don't care about any of these people. Goodbye. 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 See you. Yeah. Like, I think if you understand like PC specs and stuff, you should be able to, for the most part, understand exactly like kind of more so what he's talking about. But yeah, I don't know. Like, they should have given us something at the end there to really just like, you know, blow our minds a little bit more. Like, it didn't even have to be anything that crazy. It just had to be something that was a little bit more hyped in my. I'm actually excited for PlayStation 5 because it sounds like it's going to be like crazy. Like it's going to be like a PC in a PlayStation box pretty much. So that's going to be pretty exciting. The audio sounds like it's going to be really good. I just want to know what the exclusives are going to be because that's kind of the main reason why I buy PlayStation in the first place is because of their exclusives. But yeah. And it's backwards compatible. That's great as well. You know, that's definitely something that we can be happy about because I have a lot of PlayStation 4 games and I'd love to continue to be able to play those, you know, on the next console. So that's good. How much will the PlayStation 5 cost? I don't know. I think it's going to be pretty expensive, though. I really do. I think it's going to be pretty expensive. Probably going to be like around, I don't know, maybe it could be even like around $600. If not more, to be honest. PlayStation 5 reportedly not yet delayed due to a beer bug. Okay. Well, yeah, I think it's just going to be kind of a wait and see type of game. It just depends on how this year goes, I think. You know? It just depends on if we have coronavirus beaten in the next few months or not. So, yeah, it's probably going to be at least $600. That's my guess. If not more. I think it's probably going to be even more, but we'll see. We will see about that. I don't know. I don't really know. But yeah, so there we go. There's our information about PlayStation 5. I was hoping that we'd see a little bit more about the controller and stuff as well, but you know, we'll get all of that information eventually. But I think that they kind of missed out on an opportunity of kind of giving us a little bit more of that type of stuff today. But, you know, I'm sure that they have a plan for how they're going to announce all of that stuff. I really wanted to see the controller. I really wanted to see what the actual console is going to look like so we can stop, you know, sharing these weird-ass looking vacuum cleaner prototype looking images around everywhere. But, you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. I'm still hyped. The specs are obviously going to be insane. So that's cool. Hey Madar, how's it going, my friend? How you doing today? Am excited. Me too. I am excited. Looks cool. I have to say, definitely, for sure. I think it's gonna be insane. I think it's gonna be a great console. Now, I'm sure someone's probably going to do the breakdown between PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox, Xbox, you know, One S, X, S, X7, 4, whatever it's called. So we'll see. We'll see what happens about that. PlayStation 5 M2 hard drive is super expensive. Yeah, it's probably gonna be pretty expensive for sure. But we'll see. We will see. I just want to know what the exclusives are gonna be for to be honest, because you know, the exclusives are kind of where it's at. So yeah. But yeah, I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited too. Like I said, we're gonna be playing Doom Eternal this weekend, so I'm pretty hyped about that. New PS5 console will support 8K resolution. That is going to be insane. The Xbox does look weird. It looks like a black fridge or something. So I don't know what Xbox is doing over there, but you know, they're doing their own thing. That's totally fine, I guess. I don't know. I just like I don't know exactly how I'm gonna be able to, like, the Xbox is like, you know, like that. So like how am I supposed to fit that on my shelf that's like that big, you know? But you know, it is what it is. So Doom Eternal this weekend, I'm excited about that. I hope you guys are excited too. Should be a lot of fun. And tomorrow I'll be playing Heavy Rain. We'll be continuing on with Heavy Rain, so I hope you guys are hyped for that. But with that being said, that's probably going to be it for today. I do have a couple more videos coming out on my main channel later. If you guys are new around here, consider subscribing. I'd greatly appreciate that, and make sure that you're hitting that like button. All of that is super helpful to me. You all rock. I really appreciate all of you guys, and thank you for hanging out with me for this bit and chatting. We'll have many more opportunities to continue to chat, and you guys can get to know me better, and I can get to know you guys better, and that's pretty epic. That's kind of the whole point of this, is just to allow me to be able to personally interact with you guys more, and all of that stuff. So I think it's pretty dope. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all very soon in another video and another stream. So have a great day, everyone. Talk to you later. Be safe out there.